He may not be as celebrated as Boom Boom, but he's the undefeated IBF world champion. And John Madden will visit another great champion, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, the undisputed middleweight champ, who is ready to meet all comers.
All these guys, they all start running their mouth. I said, fine, okay. I said, if you guys want to fight, I said, I'm here. I ain't going nowhere.
But 60 sled dog teams are going clear across the 49th state. From Alaska, it's the Ididarod, the ultimate test of endurance, courage, and skill. 1,100 miles from Anchorage to Nome that pits man and animal against the elements in the last great race on Earth. All that and more next on CBS Sports Saturday.
Welcome to CBS Sports Saturday. Now, Pat O'Brien.
Thank you, and hi everybody. Today we'll bring you our coverage of this year's Ididarod. This is an event I've covered 3 times, and I know firsthand what a grueling challenge it is. Now, this year's race was one of the longest ever, and it took place under some of the worst weather conditions imaginable. But what tops everything off this year is that the first person to cross the finish line in Nome was a woman. And in what's considered to be a man's race, that is truly quite a first. Meantime, down in Georgia, they're getting set for a race of a different kind under almost perfect weather conditions, the Masters. Brent Musburger will have a special report. John Madden's journeys take him to the training camp of middleweight champion Marvelous Marvin Hagler. You know, in boxing, the headlines always go to the flashier Hearns, Duran, Leonard types. So today, John will turn the spotlight on Hagler. And in our main event, we've got a live IBF World Championship bout, a scheduled 15-rounder between lightweights Jimmy Paul and unbeaten champion Harry Arroyo. We'll start our program off with the 1,100-mile trek through the great Alaskan wilderness, and we'll find out how our Terry Bradshaw weathered that course when Sports Saturday continues here on CBS.
CBS Sports Saturday is sponsored by exceptionally smooth Michelob. Where you're going, it's Michelob. Subaru, inexpensive and built to stay that way. Firestone, with over 4,000 Firestone retailers from coast to coast. And by Allstate, for home, auto, business, health, and life. You're in good hands with Allstate.
There's a style in your life no one could ever deny. You're on your way to the top, and along the way you've always known just who you are. Where you're going, you've always known it. Where you're going, it's Michelob.
Where you're going, it's exceptionally smooth Michelob.
Where you're going, it's Michelob.
If you think you might need some new hand tools, think about this. Every single one of Sears' 1,250 Craftsman hand tools is built so incredibly tough. We guarantee them forever. And we mean forever.
There's more for your life at Sears.
In Alaska, the story of the first great race is proudly passed on from generation to generation.
Okay, we're going to read about the race to Nome, the story of the heroic Alaskan dog teams that rushed diphtheria serum to stricken Nome in 1925. Our first chapter.
It was a race against time, distance, and disease. The children of Nome were dying of diphtheria, and the only way to get the serum in was by dog sled. 20 mushers braved the brutal Arctic winter, relaying the serum 674 miles in 7 days, and the children of Nome were saved. Today, 60 years later, the spirit and courage of those heroes lives on in the mushers of a new era. Mushers who alone are willing to tackle all that is Alaska, her treacherous, unforgiving terrain, her harsh, uncontrollable elements, and her stubborn, unpredictable wildlife. In an 1,100-mile marathon that is as much an adventure as it is a race. The 1985 Ididarod, the last great race.
Hello everybody, welcome to Anchorage, the starting point for the 13th running of the Ididarod sled dog race. It's a race that pits man and animal against nature in the fierce Alaskan wilderness. And folks, let me tell you that the 61 mushers that have gathered here on 4th Avenue are the last of the great adventurers. These are true pioneers who love the challenge and the solitude of the trail.
80-year-old veteran Norman Vaughn has been down the trail before.
Thank you for coming.
While 18-year-old rookie Tim Osmar is facing the long haul for the first time. The call of the wild is echoed far beyond Alaska and the lower 48, attracting a unique group of competitors from all over the world. But the race favorites are still homegrown, like two-time runner-up Susan Butcher and four-time race champion Rick Swenson. They all race against each other, but the real opponent is the trail. This year's race is 1,137 miles. The trail itself cuts through the Alaska Range to Rainy Pass, across an area called the Burn to Ididarod, then up the frozen Yukon River and over to Unalakleet on the Bering Sea, and finally along the windy coast to the finish line in Nome. Now that's like going from Chicago to Miami in the lower 48. At a pre-race banquet, starting positions are drawn from a beaver skin boot, and this year Rick Swenson drew the Ididarod's lucky number.
I'll tell you what, it's all over right now. I got number 13.
For kids, the Ididarod is like the circus coming to town. But for the mushers, like Susan Butcher, it's serious business. They've trained for 8 months, 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week to prepare for the ordeal. And for the dogs, well, they've been training their entire life. They're bred to run and can't wait to get started. In fact, they're so anxious at the start of the race, many mushers drag an extra sled just to slow their teams down. Right behind Butcher is her friendly rival, Rick Swenson, whom she finished in front of for the first time last year. Swenson, who won the race 4 times between 1977 and 1982, but hasn't been first to Nome since, has boasted that his 17 dogs will do the job this year. The rule is the maximum number of dogs allowed is 18. Now you can drop dogs at any one of the 26 checkpoints along the trail, but you can never add any new ones. The extra dogs help with the rugged early terrain, but are expendable later. Now, here's rookie Tim Osmar. And when you talk about following in your father's sled tracks, it's not easy when your father's the defending champion, Dean Osmar. And since Dad was kind enough to sit out this year's race and let Tim run, Tim is giving him a free ride down memory lane in his extra sled. Tim and the rest of the mushers leave the start line in 2-minute intervals, but no one gets an advantage because during the course of the race, each must make a mandatory 24-hour stop, and during the rest, the times are adjusted and the differential is eliminated. For the most part, the start is disorienting for the dogs and drivers. They prefer the tranquility and solitude of the Alaskan bush to the hustle and bustle of downtown Anchorage. And as a result, they look forward to leaving the city behind and heading for the mountains where the real adventure begins.
You remember when you were my age, Dad? Come on, Dad, you understand what I mean, right? It's my first car.
It's your money, son. But if you want my advice, buy another Subaru. It's been good to us.
Sure, Dad.
you agreed you'd buy a Subaru.
But Dad, I did.
The new Subaru XT Coupe. Inexpensive and built to stay that way.
The great Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics host the New York Knicks, and the Portland Trail Blazers take on Magic Johnson and the LA Lakers in an NBA doubleheader tomorrow on CBS Sports.
Alaska's wildlife, beautiful but dangerous. It has been called the blessing and the curse of the trail. The wildlife is abundant early on as the mushers climb from sea level in Anchorage to Rainy Pass in the Alaska Range, the highest point on the trail. Susan Butcher set on doing some climbing of her own. After finishing second last year, she has her sights set on first this time around.
I think the first time I came in second, of course, that was the best I'd done, so this is great, you know. And it was exciting. I wish I had come in first, but it was exciting. Once you've done it once, that's it. Then anything short of first is losing.
To help keep the mushers from losing their way, all 1,100 miles of the trail are marked, sometimes as simply as an orange ribbon tied to the branch of a tree. At each of the 26 checkpoints along the trail, each musher is inspected for mandatory survival gear, including a sleeping bag, snowshoes, an axe, and food for both himself and his dogs.
340, goodness sakes.
On this, the first night, there is an emergency at the Rabbit Lake checkpoint, where the front runner, Susan Butcher, has arrived after encountering trouble on the trail.
David, I got stopped by a moose. Johnny's dead and Hyde's borderline. And Maddie, Yeller, co-pilot, Cracker, Ruff, all have concussions. And I need to know whether I should continue non-competitively or scratch.
The decision is made to continue on, and by morning the shock has worn off and Susan is able to recount the ordeal.
I had no idea that I'd run into a moose. We just came up over a hill and she was in the team before I even could see anything.
She hollered out, she said, "There's a moose in my team. Have you got a gun?" And I did. And grabbed my gun right away and went up to it. The moose was right in the middle of the team. Boy, I had its head down and looking real ornery.
She just started pouncing on them and then, you know, turning around and kicking them with her hind feet. And I could see the dogs were getting real injured.
I got up to it as close as I dared. The first two shots I wounded it, and about the fourth shot it finally went down. But it was real mean, looking for trouble.
Renegade wildlife isn't the only peril confronting the mushers. Record snowfalls and gusting winds have made the trail hazardous. New leader Levon Barbie has made it through Happy Valley unscathed, but a bit further back, rookie Kazuo Kojima of Japan is having trouble. Only the ego is bruised. It's not just the rookies, though. Veteran Jerry Austin has broken 3 fingers. And Joe Reddington Sr., the father of the Ididarod, has suffered a bruised shoulder. The trail is taking its toll.
The trail from Finger Lake to here was a nightmare. I mean, you look around, you'll see a lot of guys with blood banged up. I consider myself pretty lucky that I didn't come out with some of those.
Indeed. 2 mushers, including Norman Vaughn, have already been forced to scratch. Vaughn, who learned mushing from Admiral Byrd, competed in the 1932 Winter Olympics and recently gave a lesson to a famous visitor from Rome. He was knocked out by a broken leg.
I'll be back next year.
And back at Ididarod headquarters, the list grows.
Susan Butcher has had to scratch. She made her decision about 9 o'clock.
Butcher, a certified veterinary assistant, has returned to Anchorage to help in the operation of one of her dogs.
I'm still just really grieving the loss of the 2 dogs and feeling happy that it looks like everybody else is going to make it. it'll be up to somebody else to win this one.
Back out on the trail, the race has come to a complete stop for the first time in history. Heavy snow has grounded the Ididarod Air Force, halting the delivery of dog food to the checkpoints. The freeze has turned Rainy Pass into a musher's resort and provided a rare early race opportunity for both man and animal to get some R&R.
This is CBS.
If you're looking for quality auto parts, there's one place that should pop into mind. Auto Shack. Because Auto Shack carries a full line of the best parts in auto parts. Bendix for brakes, TRW for chassis and engine parts, plus other top-of-the-line brands like AC Delco, Motorcraft. You name it, Auto Shack has it, at savings up to 50%. And that could be the best part of all. Auto Shack, for people who don't have time to waste money.
Celebrate with Academy's 46th birthday sale. Choose from 3,000 barbecue grills or hibachis. A 55-gallon barrel-type smoker grill is only $49.95. Or choose from 5,000 jogging shorts, $1.66 and up. Or 10,000 pairs of jogging or tennis shoes, $4.88 and up. And 1,000 men's slacks or jeans. Jeans only $12.88. Or 1,000 Western shirts, only $8.88. Academy, the most interesting stores. 4 big stores to serve you, open all day Sunday.
Join Bob Karstens for Channel 7 News at 6 and 10.
T. Williams, a high-class thief. Ken Wall, a streetwise convict. Why on earth would they be working for the cops?
This ought to be fun.
Double Dare, Wednesday.
After 2 days of waiting, the freeze is finally lifted and the race is on. During the delay, all of the mushers took their mandatory 24-hour stops, and they are now free to go the rest of the way without any major interruptions. The first one out, led by a team of 15 dogs, is Levon Barbie. Watch the way he pedals or skates with one foot on the back of that sled. That eases the load a bit for the team up front. In past years, Barbie would be leading the pack towards Rainy Pass, but this year's avalanche warnings have forced a change in the course. Instead of going through steep and narrow Rainy, the mushers will take a 40-mile detour through broader, safer Ptarmigan Pass. Going through the Hell's Gate section of Ptarmigan Pass, there's a new leader. Levon Barbie has been passed by 67-year-old Joe Reddington Sr. Many folks consider Joe the father of the Ididarod, as he was the driving force behind the first race 13 years ago. Since that time, sled dog racing has advanced enormously, and before the race, Jerry Austin explained to me just how specialized the sport and the dogs have become.
Jerry, what is so special about these two dogs that are ahead of the rest of these dogs?
Well, these are the leaders, and basically the leaders have to take commands from the musher who's all the way back on the sled.
So these are the brain dogs.
These are the brains of the outfit right here.
The quarterbacks.
You got it.
Right, and the good looking too.
Well,
I noticed that.
One quarterback or 2 quarterbacks.
Now we got another group here. Is there anything special about?
Well, these next 2 are called the swing dogs, and the swing dogs basically follow the leader. And many times they are leaders themselves, but what's important is that they follow what the leader does and, don't do something else.
Leaders and swingers. Now we have this third set of dogs. What is their responsibility?
Well, these are the team dogs. The third, fourth, however many sets back until the last 2 they're the team dogs. They're your solid players. They're just in there working for you.
Just offensive linemen.
If you say it, that's fine with me.
No recognition, just in the middle. They don't need agents. All right. And then we come to the last group, which are the group that's right in front of the sled. Now, what is their responsibility, and do they have a name?
Well, these are called wheel dogs.
Wheelers.
Wheelers, exactly. And they have to pace themselves expertly. They have to protect themselves from trees when you're going around corners, and in a way they give the sled and the driver quite a bit of protection too from trees. They've got to really give you that punch right when you need it.
Now, Jerry Austin, you've told me all about your dogs, 15, 18 of those dogs. You told me what their responsibilities are. Now we're back here to the most important part, but I want to know one thing. Where's the steering wheel on this baby?
No steering wheel. It's all done by voice command, Terry. If you want them to go to the right, you just tell them G.
G.
If you want them to go to the left, you tell them haw.
Haw. How you stop them?
Ho.
Ho, whoa.
Either way.
And then to get them to go forward, how would
you get them to go the same way you get a football team to go. What do you say?
Hike!
The burn. It is the remnants of a forest fire that destroyed over 350,000 acres in 1977. Normally, it is an obstacle course of fallen trees, but the heavy snows have made it relatively smooth riding for Terry Atkins and his handlebar sled. About 15 miles ahead of Atkins in third place is Guy Blankenship. Guy is a diabetic, but refuses to let the disease keep him from the trail.
The only thing I can't do, the other guys can. If I decide to get tough and, extend 10, 12 hours, I can't do that. That gives me a little idea to work a little harder. It makes me better. If I didn't have the handicap, I wouldn't be near as good.
From the burn, it's non-stop to Nikolai, a small Russian Orthodox village on the shores of the Kuskokwim River. And just outside of town, on the river in ninth place, is Libby Riddles. With Susan Butcher having scratched, Riddles is now the leading woman in the race. Meanwhile, up in front, a snowstorm has moved in on the leaders. Levon Barbie is in the thick of it, breaking trail as he's been doing much of the race. In second, 20 minutes behind Barbie, is rookie Chuck Schaefer. And right on his tail, another rookie, Tim Osmar, is doing his father proud. He has moved into third place a few miles outside of McGrath. In many ways, the race is a traveling party. The mushers' arrival into towns along the trail is usually cause for celebration, and McGrath has rolled out the red carpet for an exhausted Levon Barbie. Amongst the large crowd is Levon's son, Lance, who won this year's Junior Ididarod.
What will you do now? You take a break here at McGrath? How long?
Oh, I don't know. Probably until
tomorrow morning, then?
Yeah.
Will you lead out first, or you'll stay back?
I'll stay until somebody goes.
But it will be a while before anybody goes, as bad weather has halted food drops once again, and the race is frozen for yet a second time.
Traveling party, huh? We'll pick up the action as the mushers head toward the Yukon in just a short while. But first, a quick reminder that still ahead today is our live lightweight championship bout between Harry Arroyo and Jimmy Paul. Now, looking further ahead on the boxing calendar, Thomas Hearns will battle against marvelous Marvin Hagler for the undisputed World Middleweight Championship. That's on April 15th. Now, normally Hagler does his training in the solitude of Provincetown, Massachusetts, but this time he's doing things differently, as our John Madden discovered. To prepare for his big showdown in Las Vegas, Hagler has decided to take up training in another desert oasis.
You'll find on the other hand Rolls Royces and swimming pools, streets like Bob Hope Drive and Frank Sinatra's too. Listen to its call in winter, spring and fall. Palm Springs, Palm Springs.
Palm Springs, it's a great place. Nice weather. People come here to relax and get away from it. Sit around a pool, swim, play golf, play tennis. But there's a guy here who's not doing any of those things because he's come here to work.
It's all business here for marvelous Marvin Hagler as he prepares for his middleweight title fight on April 15th against Thomas Hearns. Hagler's come a long way since he was a kid growing up in Newark, New Jersey. He's never forgotten what it was like to grow up in a poor, racially torn city. Hagler in Newark lived through troubled times during the 1960s, and he remembers the riots that bitterly divided Newark and forced his mother to move the family to Brockton, Massachusetts.
I remember seeing all these tanks and all these military people coming down the streets and people carrying rifles and things like that.
It was in Brockton that Hagler met the Petronelli brothers who taught him how to box. A lot of tough kids come in off the street, but Hagler was different. The Petronellis knew he'd be something special.
A trainer looks for certain things in a fighter. Number one, does he have the chin, and does he have heart? Those two things a trainer can't give a fighter. They generally have it, they don't have it. He had all these things. He get a cut lip or a bloody nose and come back the next day.
Black eye, bloody nose, my lip all swollen. When I go home, my mother says to me, she says, Marvin, I'll never forget you. Are you sure this is what you want to do? I said, yeah, Ma, I'm going to get this guy tomorrow.
After about 6 months, he had these little photographs made of himself. He had some pictures taken. He's decided he'd put down from the future middleweight champion of the world.
Now, 17 years later, and Hagler is the middleweight champion of the world. His reputation inside the ring is fierce, but outside, well, that's a different story.
Jamie? J-A-V-A-N. J-A-V-A-N. Oh, all right. How old are you, Jaden? 3, huh? I got a little girl, 3. I get along much better with the kids than I do with the adults. The kids are very honest. They're open. You see the big R in their eyes, you know. And believe it or not, that breaks me down. I can be the meanest guy in the training thing, you know. But some of the kids says, Mr. Hagler, can I get your autograph? I mean, that kind of breaks you down a little bit.
The thing I like about Hagler is he hasn't forgotten the humble beginnings he came from. He still carries his own equipment bag to and from his workouts, just like he did back in his amateur days. Hagler doesn't have a big entourage that travels with him like most fighters do. His workout trunks look like he hand-cut them with a pair of scissors, a reminder of the old days when Hagler was a young, struggling boxer.
Those are the days that I still remember, you know, and I still basically keep myself, my feet planted on the ground. I don't, I live within my means, you know what I mean? And I understand that, you know, you can't take things for granted.
Hagler has long been the dominant fighter in the middleweight division, but it seems that he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. While heavyweights above him like Larry Holmes and welterweights below him like Sugar Ray Leonard had multi-million-dollar paydays, all Hagler had was a title belt, but he wanted more.
Good, huh? Wow, we got this check! No, that's just my dad.
While guys like Leonard got the endorsements, Hagler stayed in shape, hoping that someday one of the welterweights would move up and challenge him for his title.
All these guys like the Leonards and the Durans and the Benitas and the Hearns, they all start running their mouth. I said, fine, okay. I said, if you guys want to fight, I says, I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. When you want me, come look for me. I'm right here. They said, I'll knock Hagler. I want 2 and 3 titles. I want 4 titles. But they don't realize they got to go through me to get it.
Hagler had an almost invincible image until his 1983 fight with Roberto Duran. Hagler won a decision, but that aura of invincibility was gone.
Duran was something special in a sense. Duran was fighting for his 4th world title. That meant that he would really go down in the history books. And I think that in the first 3 rounds where they said that I gave Duran too much respect, maybe I got caught up into that type of thing of showing him my skills, showing him how good I was.
Hagler knows his reputation was tarnished against Duran, and he's determined not to let it happen again. You see the purpose in Hagler's training, the non-stop activity. He knows it's the most important fight of his career.
All these guys are sitting on the fence like vultures, you know, and they were all waiting for one thing. They're waiting for Marvin Hagler to be beat. And they're waiting for me, for somebody to knock me out, or either they're waiting for me to get gray hair. You know, see what I got on my hat? My hat says war. That's where my head's at. I'm working to get that mental toughness, and I'm working to be physically strong because I realize that this is what I have to do.
The Hearns fight shapes up to be Hagler's toughest test yet, but Hagler's ready. Even as a kid growing up in Newark, he never doubted his own ability, and he still doesn't.
I feel as though that I have the ingredients to beat Thomas Hearns. I'm going to knock him out. I mean to knock him out. I've worked hard. I am the middleweight king, and nobody's taking nothing away from me. And that I mean. No Thomas Hearns, no Duran, no Leonard, no nobody. And they said the only way that you can lose it is if you don't want it anymore. And I still want it.
And just like his hat says there, Hagler-Hearns should be quite a war. But right now we're set to pick up the action in another epic confrontation as man and woman battle against Mother Nature in frigid Alaska. The Ididarod sled dog race continues here on Sports Saturday, following this word from your local stations.
Its name is a ghost town once again. 53 mushers have come and gone, including Bert Baumhoff, who collected $2,000 in silver for being first at the halfway point. The teams are now making the 328-mile journey across the Alaskan interior, up the frozen Yukon and over to Unalakleet on the Bering Sea. The Yukon, wide and smooth, provides the perfect training ground for many young mushers who live along the river's banks. And right now, the Ididarod is undergoing a youth movement. 28-year-old Libby Riddles has taken over first place, and just 2 hours behind her, teenager Tim Osmar is staying close to the lead. Both Riddles and Osmar are driving experienced dog teams. Libby has many of Joe Garney's from last year, while Tim is using the dogs that pulled his father, Dean, to victory. The elder Osmar stepped out of the limelight to allow his eager son to finally run the Ididarod.
Timmy's been wanting to do this race for years. In fact, he wanted to do it the last 2 years when he was 16 and 17, and they wouldn't let him, so we just both knew that as soon as he was old enough that he'd be doing it.
Dean and Tim mapped out the future, hit the beaches to train, and father taught son about the relationship between dog and musher.
Without them, I wouldn't be here. Without me, they probably wouldn't be here either, so we got to take care of each other, or else it wouldn't work, you know. Musher are just part of the team.
Joe Garney handed his team over to girlfriend Libby Riddles for this year's race, and she's not at all surprised at how well she and the team are doing.
I'm not really too surprised because the team came in 3rd place last year, and it's a team of half of my best dogs and half of his best dogs.
Tim won 3 straight junior Ididarods, but now follows Dad's footsteps on the big trail.
In order to win something, you got to think you can, you got to know you can. It would be special for me to win the year after my father won, and I think I can do it. I just know now that it's going to be a very hard thing to do.
For Libby Riddles, it would be history if she won. However, she carries no torch for the women's movement.
I can't really say that having, being a woman has that much to do with it. Just as a personal goal, I look at it just like anybody else. I'd be thrilled to death.
She sold fur hats to raise the money to race this year, making first place a very special place to be.
Here you are in the Ididarod race, and you're first one out. You're in the #1 spot. It's the first time I've been first in the Ididarod. I've been in the front before, but it feels pretty good being first.
In 1983, Rick Mackey finished first and accomplished what Tim Osmar is trying to do, win the race as his father before him had done. Dick Mackey won it in 1978. Right now, the leading foreigner is Jacques Philippe of France. While he is running competitively, his wife Claire and her friend Monique Benet are getting a different picture of the race from the back of the pack. They're not competing against others, just themselves. Their victory will be in finishing, not winning, because they know they're out of their element. They have trained for the race in the forest of France, and although it is beautiful, it is nothing compared to the vastness that is Alaska.
Monique, why do you run the Ididarod race?
The real way to know Alaska is by sled dogs, because sled dogs are the picture of Alaska. And I take this race this year as a beautiful walk and discovery.
Meanwhile, up front, Libby Riddles has lost her lead during a stop to feed her dogs. While the team is feasting on seal, beaver, fish, and steak, Libby is surviving on what can only be described as your basic all-American junk food diet.
What else you got here? Colonel Sanders. Ooh, this is good stuff too. Pizza. I was so mean when I was making my airdrops. I ordered 2 large pizzas and then had them stick them out in the backyard and freeze them.
On the trail, Levon Barvey, the musher who pulled out ahead of Libby, is traveling through sacred Indian land called Old Woman Pass. It is one of the most beautiful sections of the trail, and with everyone behind him and only Uniloclete in front, Levon can relax and enjoy the scenery as he rides off into the sunset.
Come on, America. Save on Firestone 721 radios and more during the Driver's Choice Sale.
America's driving to Firestone.
Save 10 to 25% on steel-belted radios, featuring our famous bestseller, the 721. Choose Firestone radios for light trucks. Even save on our popular S211 for imports. Or get MasterCare 8-point brake service. Now just $59.95 from America's #1 brake specialist. Choose Firestone today.
Firestone.
The tornado broke this window and 4 other windows in these 2 cars. I've never been through anything like that in my life.
Allstate update. Fast, fair claim service.
Monday morning, we called Allstate. And when I came home from work Monday afternoon, they had people in the driveway repairing our car windows.
I was amazed they could get here as fast as they did. We've got a lot of damage in this neighborhood. If you're ever in a tornado like we've been through, you want to be in good hands with Allstate.
You're in good hands with Allstate. A member of the Sears Financial Network.
The ominous Bering Sea provides the backdrop for the final leg of the Ididarod. The teams leave Uniloclete and wind the final 269 miles up the windswept coast to the finish line in Nome. Before daybreak, Libby Riddles is up and trying to get a head start on the other mushers.
Those guys always say they can catch you, but, sometimes they don't. I'm taking a chance going out this morning in this kind of weather. It might be kind of tough on my leaders and stuff, but right now I'm at the point where I got to either take a chance or to heck with it, you know. Got to do it. Get up! Get up! Get up! Come on, get up there! All right! All right!
And as she is pulling out, the master tactician, Rick Swenson, is pulling in, not the least bit concerned with her departure.
I was really surprised to get here and find out that everybody wasn't gone. I'm not afraid of anybody getting away from me. I'm afraid of somebody catching me because of the weather.
So as Swenson rests, a host of others make their way out onto the coastal tundra. Experienced mushers like John Cooper and Dewey Halverson have pulled out of Unalakleet early in pursuit of Libby Riddles. Even the Yukon River Fox, Emmett Peters, has decided to make a run for the front. By early afternoon, everyone is asking just one question.
KL7TK, calling KL7 Alpha Alpha, KL7 Alpha Alpha, KL7TK. We're calling to request the status of the musher Rick Swenson. I wonder if you could fill us in on that, please.
Roger. I show team number 13, Rick Swenson, out of this checkpoint.
Approximately 4 hours and 25 minutes behind the leader, team number 46, Libby Riddles, over.
At 3 in the afternoon, Swenson is back on the trail, but he has his work cut out for him as there are 8 mushers ahead of him, and the leader, Libby Riddles, has opened up a 6-hour lead. But that advantage is in jeopardy as Riddles pulls into the village of Shaktoolik. Increasing coastal winds are causing ground blizzards. The surface snow is blowing at upwards of 40 miles per hour and visibility is dropping. After consulting with partner Joe Garney, Libby decides to take a chance and heads out into the storm. She is hoping to put the worst of the storm between her and the competition. Meantime, 300 miles up the coast, Nome is getting into the swing of the Ididarod. But I guess that's just par for the course.
How about a big hand and a big cheer out there for all the mushers on the Ididarod Trail, huh?
Everybody's having a party, but not the mushers.
I did the Ididarod Trail. Come on!
Libby spent the night camped out on the trail, and by morning her game plan had paid off. The brunt of the bad weather had passed her by, and with visibility improving, she can easily follow the trail. Just 20 miles behind her, though, it's a different story, as John Cooper and Dewey Halverson are stopped dead in their tracks. The ground storm has iced over the fur around their dogs' eyes. The leaders can't see and don't particularly care to run headstrong into the wind.
The first half of this is just horrible. I hope we got a dog team left by the time we get there.
Also in the storm is Rick Swenson. He has moved into 4th place, but is still losing time to Libby Riddles. She has just arrived in Koyuk in good condition, 24 hours after making her dramatic nighttime run into the heart of the storm.
When it got dark, I had lots of trouble seeing the trail. Just what made it so bad is that it was kind of wet snow and the wind, and I kept kicking myself in the butt and saying it was the stupidest thing I ever done, but I didn't think about turning back.
And by the next morning, it was clear to everyone that Libby would be a tough riddle to solve.
Jim Brewer with you on KICY's Breakfast Show. We're going to send this song out to Dwayne Halverson and John Cooper, chasing after Libby Riddles on the Ididarod Trail.
Run, don't walk. She's not gonna wait much longer. So run, don't walk to her.
Last year, Carmen.
By the final hours, exhaustion, fatigue, and despair have conquered many of the mushers. But at White Mountain, a refreshed Libby Riddles is preparing herself and her team for the stretch run to Nome.
Last haul, guys. Buy you guys sirloin steak and a box of dog biscuits each.
Get up, dogs. You ain't tired. The spirit of this race, you can set this trail on fire. You were born to the race. Your dogs are just the same. You were made for the winner's circle. It runs inside your veins.
5 hours back, Cooper and Halverson are still giving chase. they're working together, desperately trying to gain ground. But behind them, pre-race favorite Rick Swenson has conceded.
Well, I lost the trail right at dark. There's a section there where it must have been some overflow came in, or the wind blew all the snow away or something, and I guess that pretty well blew my chances of winning. That's the way it goes.
As dawn breaks on day 18, Libby Riddles can see history on the horizon. Dewey Halverson has made up 3.5 hours, but is still 2 hours behind. And John Cooper has settled comfortably into third. And down the trail at the finish line in Nome, the wake-up call has gone out early. And at 6 a.m., the streets are filled with people waiting to welcome Alaska's new First Lady.
About time we have a lady winning. She deserves it. Move over, Rick. Here comes Libby. The morning is just made. The lady's gonna make it.
With 9 miles to go, there are no more questions, only answers. Libby Riddles will be the first woman ever to win the Ididarod. Despite a courageous dash from White Mountain, Dewey Halverson will have to settle for second. At the finish line, mushing legends are gathering for the grand finale. Last year's winner, Dean Osmar, Joel Reddington Sr., who was forced to scratch from this year's race, and Libby's boyfriend, Joe Garney, are all gathered to share in her momentous trip down Front Street.
Good shot.
Congratulations. When I feel like as if I died, now it's okay. The money, I don't know, maybe Hawaii. That's what I keep talking about. A box of dog biscuits for every dog in the team. I don't know. I can't even believe it yet.
Libby receives $50,000 for a victory, and her 2 lead dogs, Dugan and Axel, each get a golden harness to commemorate the occasion. 2 hours later, Dewey Halverson finishes second, and 4 hours after that, John Cooper claims third. And what about Guy Blankenship? With the aid of his handicap, he captured 7th. And Tim Osmar missed Rook of the Year honors, finishing a respectable 13th. And all of those who make it to the finish line in Nome receive a ceremonial belt buckle and traditional patch. But material goods are not the reason. These mushers have run the race.
The thing is, it's just me and the dogs against the Alaskan tundra, if you like. You know, it's the man and the dogs, no machines, no help, just you getting 1,000 miles. You know, it is the greatest race on earth, and just getting there, I think everyone who gets there is a winner.
And so it is that Monique Benet, who finished last, can return to France a winner, along with all the other men, women, and dogs who completed the 1985 Ididarod, the last great race.
You know, Terry Bradshaw has 4 Super Bowl rings. We're going to give him one for his thumb for covering Alaska's Super Bowl. I'm sure he'll want to go back